Hello, and welcome to another Seen Anything Good Lately. I'm Jason Solomons, and this is the podcast that channels our passion for sharing what we're watching. And on Seen Anything Good Lately, you get recommendations from the best in the business as we find out what the professionals from the worlds of film, TV, books, and broadcasting are up to and looking at.
I've really enjoyed Cobra Kai, but I thought I'd give it a go, and I binge watched it, which is always a good sign. In 2 days, I was in.
My guest on this episode, you heard a snippet of him there, is Jonny Owen. He's a filmmaker, actor, broadcaster, an all-round fine Welsh chap, married to the awesome actress Vicky McClure, and they are the loveliest couple in Nottingham. It's an official title, and they've won it 3 years running. Jonny made a great film about Nottingham Forest and Brian Clough called I Believe in Miracles, and he's followed that up with The Three Kings. It's a documentary about the three Scottish football managers, Bill Shankly, Matt Busby and Jock Stein, who as the giant bosses at Liverpool, Man United and Celtic shaped the face of modern British and indeed world football. It's a really good documentary produced by the team that gave us Amy and Senna and Maradona, so we're in really capable cinematic hands here. We also find out that there's much more than footy to Jonny Owen, and we'll hear all about it when I ask him if he's seen anything good lately. There's also a chance on this show to win a Halloween collection of movies, including The Curse of the Were-Rabbit from Aardman, courtesy of Universal Pictures Home Entertainment. So keep listening, as that's all to come right after I tell you what I've been watching. The Climb is a great new US indie, definitely worth a trip to the cinema. Go with your best male friend, your bro, because this is a dark comic twist on the bromance genre. Written by and starring and directed by its two leads, Michael Angelo Covino and Kyle Marvin, both of whom I didn't know and who now burst onto the scene, a bit like, reminded me of Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn in Swingers, almost 25 years ago that was. Michael and Kyle played two lifelong best friends called Mike and Kyle, and the film's opening scene is one of the best of the year, with the two of them on a biking holiday in the south of France, going up the hills in the Alpes-Maritimes, and it's a one long tracking shot that doesn't break at all, and Mike is cycling alongside Kyle, and he admits to him that he has slept with Kyle's fiancée. Mike starts breaking away and puffing uphill. He's the better bike rider, so Kyle can't catch him to start a fight, so that he kind of breaks away with him on the climb. That's why he tells him where he does it. So it's very funny. It's also very symbolic of male friendship, all that rivalry and that frustration, that one-upmanship, and all sorts of toxic shit you get between bros.
Mike, I'm getting married. How awesome is that?
Awesome.
She's the best. She's like the best person ever. I don't have to change to be with her, you know? Remember how Marissa made me get that Rob Thomas haircut? And Tina made me be an atheist for a year?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Ava isn't like that. She loves me for who I am. And I love her for who she is. I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with her.
Kyle, I slept with Ava.
What? What do you mean slept?
Like we sexually slept together.
Oh my God. I'm gonna fucking kill you.
The Climb is told in chapters and goes through weddings and funerals and Christmases and ski trips, and each time these friends are in a different spot, and it always seems that Mike's about to sort of screw up Kyle's life, even though Kyle's life doesn't really look like it's on the right track anyway. Listen, I thought it was some very impressive directorial sequences in there with one takes, great camera moves. It's the sort of film you get more with the Scandinavian filmmakers like Thomas Vinterberg or Ruben Östlund. But there's also a bit of Will Ferrell or John C. Reilly in there. It's a bit of a surprise, The Climb. I wasn't expecting it to be so good. It's a really great example of the bromance genre, and it introduces us to some fresh new voices in American indie cinema, in Lycra. And so now to Jonny Owen, the writer, broadcaster. You can hear him on TalkSport every Sunday morning. And he's a filmmaker, husband of Vicky McClure. That's a full-time job. she from This Is England and Line of Duty. He's just a top chap and creator of very fine football documentaries. He made one about Brian Clough at Forest, I Believe in Miracles. He made one about the Welsh football team's journey at Euro 2016. And he's now back with The Three Kings, an excellent film about Matt Busby, Bill Shankly and Jock Stein, three Scots all born within a 30-mile radius of each other in Lanarkshire, who went on to create footballing dynasties. It's the only word you can have for them. At Manchester United, Liverpool and Celtic. Dynasties which lasted for years and they're still felt today, wherever football is played around the world. It's a story of men, of teamwork, of belief, of grit and iron will, and also it's got lots of social history about working Britain, and it's held together with fabulous, wise audio from leading football writers' voices such as Richard Williams, Patrick Barclay, and the great Scottish commentator Archie Macpherson.
There was a lot of talk about society being fractured. These three great men were educated in interdependence, community, and it bound them together in a way that people growing up today just would not understand.
It was playing, it was for pride and for the people, of course. Now it's money, money, money.
What is a football club but a community? The creations of Stein, Shankly and Busby became the good old days.
Well, everything I've got about football, I owe to football. And the dedication and what I put into the game. You only get out the game what you put into it. And I put everything into it I could and still do for the people and for the people that I was playing for and the people that I was manager for. I didn't cheat them out of anything. So I put all my heart and soul to the extent that my family suffered.
Do you regret that at all?
Oh, yeah, I regret it very much, yeah. Somebody said the football's a matter of life and death to you. I said, listen, it's more important than that.
Oh, great old football voices and sounds there. But before we got down to the business of finding out what Jonny Owen and Vicky McClure have been watching, I asked Jonny about this great new film, The Three Kings, and what it was in the Lanarkshire water that made such extraordinary men.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Shankly and Stein never drank. They never drank a drop of alcohol in their lives, which is really interesting. Isn't it? You'd expect them, because of where they were from, to have been sort of, I shouldn't stereotype.
I know, but you would expect, especially at that time as well. But I suppose they were kind of abstemious, devout Scots in a way.
They were. I mean, it's quite interesting. You had a non-conformist sort of, Presbyterian Scot. I think, from what I understand, I mean, certainly with Shankly, he was just a born athlete. He was obsessed with training and football. Stein loved his food. I know that a few of his friends sort of said that on interviews, but never drank. Matt Busby apparently liked a little sherry every now and then. And when they came to the office, the story goes, the only time either of them ever drank, this is Stein and Shankly, was when they were with Matt, and they had a little sherry with him, apparently.
It's a bit different to the other guy you covered in your last film, Brian Clough, who liked a little bit more than that.
Well, no, he did like a pint.
Three Kings, it's a super documentary, Jonny. A bit different to your I Believe in Miracles, different sort of bounce to it, different sort of timbre to it. Did you bring sort of techniques that you'd learned in I Believe in Miracles into Three Kings?
I did, yeah. I kind of I had a brilliant producer on this one, James Gay Rees, of course, who did Amy and Senna. Yeah, and we talked a lot about things. Obviously, James comes very much from the school of, using archive and just voices underneath, which is Asif's way of doing things, and we wanted to do that for this as well. So we wanted to bring the story to a new audience. You need to keep an 18-year-old watching this.
Yes. What do you have to do to make it look modern?
I think you cut it in a very specific way. I mean, obviously they didn't have the coverage they had now, nothing like it, but FA Cup finals were filmed. They did have sort of a camera behind the goals, and stuff. So there was footage there.
I always talk to you about the music. Obviously, in I Believe in Miracles, you had that sort of, we wanted to use that rare groove kind of swagger that Clough brought to Nottingham. You say you got Richard Hawley to compose the bits of score here, but you use a bit of jazz in places. You use some pop hits from the time as well. How did you come to decide, what to use? I Feel Free, for example. And
yeah, I mean, I really liked, in the 60s especially, because of the explosion of music, I wanted to use sort of
I mean, it would have been easy to just go, here's Beatles, here's, Jerry Marsden and all that.
Exactly, so I wanted to use some stuff. Richard Hawley's stuff was really interesting to me, because he'd written some stuff, and I'd spoken to him about doing some stuff with me, and I really liked his album, and I was a bit like, what do you think? And he had some stems, basically, which is the way it works, he gives you stuff, and I was a bit like, I almost want psychedelic heavy metal, really. The sound of industry, you know, we could hear the clang of the thing. And that's what we use at the top. That's where you get that ominous sound. And I even put, the sound people were fantastic. And we worked really hard. We've even put it with some of Richard's music, which is kind of almost like backward guitar and slightly distorted. The sound of crowds as well, which give me the idea of people leaving the docks or coming up from a pit, and there's clangs in there and all that kind of stuff. So we kind of worked really hard to work that kind of stuff in.
It's fantastic to see in your film The Three Kings, you know, how it was as well, and it's just at the edge of my consciousness as well. It's like another history doc, but it's so much more fun than that, Johnny. So congratulations on that. I'm going to ask you what you've been watching. I don't know if you were studying anything to get in the mood for that. If you've been watching some football, so Johnny Owens, have you seen anything good lately?
I've been watching a lot, obviously, like everybody else on the planet, a lot of Netflix and Amazon. I quite enjoyed, I know when you spoke about it, I enjoyed sort of the hermetically sealed, as it goes, a great line, the hermetically sealed Spurs All or Nothing documentary series. Like an airport, it was brilliantly described. I never realised how manicured the lawns were until I went back to it and see what you said. It's like really strange, this almost like spaceships landed in that part of North London, but Mourinho was a star, there's no two ways about it. He was very, very
weird though, since we spoke about the All or Nothing, that yes, they've got Mourinho, the big star, but of course they've missed the big story. They've still signed Gareth Bale, so he doesn't even make it into that documentary, and he could be the difference.
I think he's the best Welsh player ever. No, that's my argument.
What, better than Giggs?
Yeah, I think so, and I think he's better than John Charles. But I do think that we're living in a golden era for Welsh football. Happy to do that.
So what have you been watching? What have you seen?
I watched the Chicago 7. That was very good.
The Trial of the Chicago 7 on Netflix, the Aaron Sorkin thing. It was good, wasn't it? I enjoyed that very much.
It's a sad ending. I don't want to give the ending away, but you know what happened to Abby Hoffman and those kind of... I never realised that, you know what I mean? That they kind of, you know, because they had such an important pivotal moment in American history, the Chicago Convention of 1968. It's become such a big moment there. And I never realised what happened to them, you know, sort of... Tom Hayden obviously does the best, but I never realised that. And I kind of like to think I'm up on certainly American 60s history. But it was quite poignant, really, that they were kind of where they ended it all up. But I really enjoyed. I've really enjoyed Cobra Kai.
I haven't seen Cobra Kai, and I think I'm missing something, Johnny. Tell me about Cobra Kai. It's something to do with the Karate Kid, right?
But basically, it's the Karate Kid main characters now. How many years later it would be? I suppose maybe 30 years later. And I was exactly like you. I was a bit like, nah, it's not for me, really. I watched the old Karate Kid.
I loved it.
Yeah. But I don't want to go back there with it because it was brilliantly done. You know, so I thought I'd give it a go, and I binge watched it, which is always a good sign. In 2 days, I was in, because what they do is the original bad character Johnny in the first thing. I don't know how true this is, but somebody told me there was a thing on YouTube which has been knocking around for about a decade where actually they say Dan was the bad guy, and they show you the reasons why actually Dan was the bad guy. So anyway, I think they took that as the kernel of the idea and then did the whole series. But they do it from Johnny's viewpoint, and it's brilliant because he's kind of like he's a single bloke. He's not kind of done particularly well, and
he's old now.
Yeah, right. And LaRusso's become really successful. And he's got spoiled children. LaRusso has the eternal battle of him doing really well, but his children are spoiled. And it's really kind of, but Johnny in the meantime is, you know, down his up. He tries to help the local kid, so there's all this thing, and then they start meeting again, and they still got the old rivalries. But what I love about it is the tongue is it's just so tongue in cheek, and it deals in nostalgia. And as the great saying goes, nothing sells an art like nostalgia. I get that. So it taps into something where, you know, you go, oh, that guy, he sounds like me. Yeah, every so often he'll say something, I'll go, God, he sounds like me. This is a bit like, you know, he's rubbish with his, a bit like we were saying around, rubbish with technology, and going, oh, I don't know, why can't I just? So there's things in there where you just go, oh, that kind of, and they've really struck a chord, and I think it's been hugely successful. But I would highly recommend it. There's pastiches to and references to 80s movies and things all the way through it. Really cleverly.
I've got to see this. And I think I can see it with the kids as well. They have watched the original Karate Kid, so I think they will get this.
Yeah.
Cobra Kai. You know what? You've tipped it for me. Some of these, we come on the show and people say this, and I go, yeah. I'm probably not going to watch that. But a lot of times people recommend stuff to you, and you go, yeah, and we decide early on that I'm still not going to see it. But Cobra Kai from you, Johnny, I'm going to take that. So that's a good one. Are you one of those that you and your missus, you sit back, you say to Vicky, well, we're going to watch this, and she goes, no, I want to watch something else. So you watch that on your own upstairs, and I'll watch this down here. How does that work?
That's exactly it. We kind of we got 2 rooms, and she goes, oh, go off and watch. I'm watching the Comey rule now, which is very, very good. Brendan Gleeson as Trump, absolutely brilliant.
Is that good? I think it's a bit too close to it to now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and you just go, obviously because they can talk now about when he was first elected and mention things. There's a moment in it where you just go, wow, where they go. But what will it mean if he's elected? And they go, well, look, he's got very close advisors. It's a very different thing now when you're running a government, and we're pretty sure that it won't go too mad. And they go, but what's the worst case? This is the head of the FBI and the CIA. They go, well, what's the worst case scenario? He goes, well, the worst case scenario would be trade war with China, getting a conservative on the Supreme Court, stoking racial tensions, but they're going, but that, that's the worst case scenario. And of course, you're watching it going, that's everything that's happened. Everything that's happened. And they're talking about it, the upper echelon. So it's really clever how they've done it. And they're not being judgmental because these things have happened. And they're going, this is the worst. But, we kind of think that his people can keep him on an even keel. But then when you meet his people, it's a very
So is it a satire? Is it, what do you think it's got?
No, it's a great drama.
It's not there to ridicule Trump in a way, that's unusual, isn't it? Because usually you'll have the things to like it'll be Alec Baldwin taking the Mickey at Trump, which is so beyond now in terms of the satire that you do. We had Tim Robbins on the show last week. He's done a satire of this Trump, this kind of I was just saying to him how difficult it is to lampoon Trump. He's bigger than any lampoon you can do somehow.
I know. I mean, it's quite interesting because they brought back Spitting Image, and a mate of mine, Matt Ford, works on it. He does it brilliant. He does the voice of Trump and he does the voice of.
Oh, does that
Trump.
Matt Ford doing Trump? Okay.
Yeah, great lad. And he says to me, we have too much material. Is the problem? Exactly as you said. You're almost having to cram it all in. But they picked up on this brilliant thing where he calls coronavirus Coroni. Like as if he knows it. Me and Coroni, coronavirus going out. But he said to me, it's almost as if every week we go in and there's almost too much material. Exactly as you said, for satire. That's the irony, But yeah, Call Me Straight. It's a straight drama, and it basically comes from the story. He was the head of the FBI that had to release the email story about Hillary Clinton. But he has a real dilemma because his wife and his children are going to don't do it because he could get elected in the back of this. And you've got to think of America. And he's going, but by law, I have to because she didn't. But they're going, but it can affect the election. So the story is about his moral dilemma of having to release the information about the emails. And of course, it comes back to bite him. And as he goes through, you get more and more. He's having more and more meetings with Trump and his advisors and Trump's advisors are going, you can't really meet the head of the FBI on his own. It's meant to be independent. Trump keeps asking him round. Come round for dinner, and he keeps going, I can't really.
Oh, I see. So we got a little sort of Frost Nixon kind of two-hander thing going on. Yeah.
Two magnificent actors, and sometimes 15, 20 minutes of just the two of them talking, at each other over a dinner table. It's really, really good.
It's interesting that you mentioned Spitting Image because I haven't seen the new one because I basically couldn't work out where it was. It's on BritBox or something.
BritBox.
Yeah.
It's on ITV. It's on ITV this weekend.
Oh, okay. Have you got BritBox?
No, I haven't. I get it sent to me.
Ah, I see. And tell me, when Line of Duty's on, do you have viewing parties? Are you allowed to watch it? Does Vicky say, no, you have to go upstairs and watch that? I don't want to watch it, or do you do that? The first episode.
We watch it in the living room together, and then we just do it, and it's brilliant because I say this to everybody. I have got the best person sitting next to me because I can pause it and go, right, what's happened there and why is he there? And she'd go, well, do you remember in series 1 and episode? Well, yes.
Oh, she actually tells you. Does she not just say shut up and?
No, she'll fill it in. I go, brilliant, yes. So I've got probably the best person. I've got like my own sort of like, I don't know, series Bible sitting next to me, sort of like explaining all the situations to me. So it's been fantastic. And the series has been a phenomenon, really, isn't it? It's probably the event television of the last 10 years in a drama sense.
Each time it's like, well, they've done it again, and they've got everyone talking again, and how they're going to do it. And I know Jed does it brilliantly, but they just do it, and she's you know what pleasure it is for me to see her being so fantastic.
She's done great, and the choice of the Jed, I think, is it's not want to use the word Luke, but he's a genius. I mean, he's a lovely man, but he's been very clever what he's done, and he's always thinking. But the casting was the clever thing because Vicky come from almost like an independent sort of film Channel 4 thing. Then Martin Compston's the same.
I remember him from Sweet 16 in Canada, and he was playing Phil Kilmartin. He was playing Greenock. And he was like, "Oh, should I give it up?" I was like, "Well, you're quite good at this acting, Lark."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then you got Adrian Dunbar, who was kind of seen as this kind of Irish actor. And in the first series, done a few scenes, and then people now this is very good. And then them three together was just inspired because it just works, and they've become very, very close off screen. And I think you can tell that.
Haven't they just done a goggle box? The three of them.
Yeah. It's very good. Adrian Dunbar is definitely the straight man in the three.
Right, because you know what it's like to watch telly with Vicky, presumably.
Yes, I do. That's what it's like. Yes, literally. I mean, I just think Line of Duty's. It's like I said, every year it keeps surprising us and it keeps it interesting. And I mean, I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know when he's going to reveal H, what happens then, but I'm no doubt he'll go out.
You can't ask her that. You don't want to ruin it.
I've never done that. No, I wouldn't go there.
What about films? Do you watch films together, or or are there ones that she says, "Well, I'm watching this for me, and you can go upstairs and watch your boys' films up there"?
I tend to watch. I tend to watch a lot of Netflix. I watch a lot of Amazon, that kind of thing. So I'm on the streaming services. I think that the term is. She kind of. I haven't seen her for about 2.5 months. Bless her, because she's been in Belfast filming. Yeah. In a bubble. So bless her. So she's been over there. So I don't know how much television she's watching at the moment because of lines and all the rest of it. I'm the one that's kind of having to be able to watch series after series, and it's fine. Do you know what I mean? I'm happy with that. I watched the Plot Against America. Was brilliant. There's so much good stuff on stuff like Sky Atlantic. There was a reboot of Gomorrah, which is called Le Mortel, which is a story.
Well, I haven't seen that one, but I liked Gomorrah, the series itself.
Yeah,
I love the film, of course.
Yeah, and the series is almost like a bit like This Is England. Was the series even better? You know, it moved in a different way, and I thought that was really interesting. So I watched a lot of that. I watched all of Mad Men again over the lockdown.
All of it. That's 10 seasons, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of hours.
It's my favourite of all the sort of the big tellies, you know, from The Sopranos and The Wire. And Mad Men's my favourite.
And me, it's my favourite of all the time. I just think everything about it, the attention to detail, the sets, the characters, the way they and you know, you were talking about earlier on, you know, when you move with social history as well and with such a keen eye to it, I think that's fantastic. So there were moments in Mad Men where you just go, well, that's unbelievable writing. Like where there's a great line that I always remember where the Kennedy-Nixon election's happening. I think was it that 1960, that kind of period, and he closes in the polls dramatically overnight, and they're Republicans, aren't they? And he kind of, what's happened? How did it happen? And somebody just goes, Sinatra came out for Kennedy. And it's such a brilliant line because the power of Sinatra in America at that time, Sinatra saying, I'm supporting Kennedy, meant millions of people across America were now going to vote for Kennedy. And I just think the attention to detail, stuff like Viner did, like the sound of more and more police cars in the background as New York is degenerating during the 60s. They started having much more social problems where Peggy moves to the flat.
Yes.
And the areas of Manhattan become rougher. Somebody gets attacked. I was a bit like...
And the black secretary with the NACCP, which I thought was really interesting, yeah.
Brilliant.
I thought it was... and the styling of it was great, and then you've got him at the centre of it all, you know, such a character.
One of the great characters, if not the greatest character ever. And I mean, you know, and you'd forgive him so much as well, which was unbelievable, really, because he was a swine, but it was the time, you know, the way he lived in the time, and you know, then he gets a French wife, and of course, what the other thing they're doing is, which what the record companies did in the film companies, the slow move to LA is happening in the mid '60s, and it's affecting the advertising industry. So the office over there, and they start to say, well, we think California could be the next place, and of course, we all know now California and LA became, you know, the great rival to New York, certainly in the '80s and '90s.
Yeah, and it got and the sun that was coming in, and the
different lighting.
Terrific series all along.
Kennedy, nouveau riche, recent immigrant who bought his way into Harvard, and now he's well-bred? Great. Nixon is from nothing. Self-made man, the Abe Lincoln of California, who was vice president of the United States 6 years after getting out of the Navy. Kennedy, I see a silver spoon. Nixon, I see myself.
If we were to run a critical ad, there are obvious benefits. When you run an ad that's positive, you're only convincing the people who are already voting for you. But when you run an ad that's critical, you get a shot at the people on the fence.
There are a lot of people on the fence.
Gentlemen, whether the Nixon campaign wants it or not, we have to produce a spot that aims a howitzer at Kennedy's balls. I want to hear ideas after the long weekend.
I agree. Let's go down swinging.
If we can switch to a conversation about paying clients, Menkins is coming in today to sign off on the rollout, father and daughter. I get the feeling old Abe Schmenken can kill this whole thing. Of course, the checks have cleared already, but Don, I want you to go in and ride bareback over Paul here.
Done.
And Don, I want you on your best behavior.
Excuse me?
And I know she bothers you.
What about movies? If I was to take you back, like you like a bit of nostalgia, Johnny. We've established that. Take you back to the first movie you ever saw. Do you remember that?
The first movie I went to the cinema to see, which had a profound effect on me, was obviously Star Wars. I think I was 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. To the point where, and that's a family joke, and it's very funny, but I insisted on being called Luke. So if my mother had to shout me for food, she'd go, Johnny, and I wouldn't come. She'd have to go, Luke, and I'd come because I was Luke Skywalker. So I mean, it was like I was obsessed. And I was quite well known amongst my mates because I went to see it 3 times in the first week it was out. This is in the 70s. My grandfather took me the second week, and then a family friend took me. So I went to see it 3 times because you could only see things in the cinemas then. So I had a very sort of visual effect on me that I loved films. But I was very lucky in that my father and my grandfather were huge movie fans, especially my grandfather. He was born in 1915, so he caught Hollywood and everything smack in the mouth in the mid-20s, 30s. So he went to the cinema all the time, 3-4 times a week.
That was where they had to go, wasn't it? For their information, for their entertainment. There's no telly at home. It was like listening to the wireless. That was the community went to the cinema in their droves.
In their droves, and so I became very aware of names. So like Charles Lawton, for argument's sake, actors I became very aware of. So I watched the first Mutiny on the Bounty because BBC Two would repeat films and my grandfather would watch them, and I remember like On Moonlight Bay with Doris Day watching that and really enjoying that.
Would he be like, come on, Johnny, you've got to watch this, Oh, I love Doris Day,
Yeah, he would, and he'd sort of say, oh, this actor's this and that, and my father was a big fan of Houston and all that, and he loved Westerns, and my grandfather was much more sort of like, of the traditional sort of Hollywood epics. He loved Capra, he was like, watch this film, It's a Wonderful Life, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. So I watched all them as a kid. But then where I got really lucky was they loved The Godfather, and they loved sort of the Scorsese stuff and all that. Raging Bull was on, and that was when videotapes started coming out. So I was able to watch them over and over on videotape, So I was very lucky, and I had a great sort of upbringing. I always remember Tarantino said a wonderful thing once. They said to him, "You didn't go to film school, Quentin, did you?" And he went, "No, I went to films." I thought, what a great response that was. You watched films.
But it takes the enthusiasm of the amateur, like your dad and your grandfather, to infect you with that. And then they go, come on, you've got to watch this, you'll love it. You could either take against it and kind of go, no, that's all black and white, it's all rubbish. Or you can kind of go, oh my God, you're right. Jimmy Stewart is an amazing actor, even though the acting is not of your era. Do you know what I mean? If you compare him to the De Niro's and Pacino's, that naturalism that they've gone through, but they're still amazing actors, and to appreciate that it is to swallow the kind of enthusiasm of the previous generation. That's as much as important as any film school theorist can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting because obviously, as I've read about it since, when I watched It's a Wonderful Life first, I always remember my father saying to me, watch when he prays. He said he really, he really means it. And I was watching as a kid, and of course, when somebody says that to us older, you're like, wow, he's really praying there, Stewart. And then years later, I watched an interview with Capra, and he says this great thing. He said, "Oh, life's all about moments." He said, "I can distill everything in my career into a moment. If I can create a moment, I've done it." And they went, "Did you do it, Frank?" And it might even have been partners. And he goes, "Yes." And he said, "What's your moment?" And he went, "When Jimmy Stewart praise in It's a Wonderful Life, that's my moment. I did it all there in that moment." And he says, one take, because Jimmy said to me, "You can have to do this in one take," and I'm doing it. And he said to me, he was praying there. He was really praying. And I was a bit like, my old man in Merthyr Tydfil had seen that and gone, this is the bit. And I thought, isn't it amazing how much art can translate into ordinary people's lives, where, because he's doing something that's honest and truthful and from his heart, and he means it. And then there it goes, thousands of miles away to Merthyr Tydfil, and my father watching goes, he's praying there. It's great, sort of thing I always remember.
So your father knew. He knew what cinema could do. He knew about the moment,
Yeah.
Well, is there a film, Johnny, that you could say changed your life?
Yes, Quadrophenia. I love Quadrophenia. It's the film I've watched the most. I still think Saturday Night Fever is a fantastic film,
isn't it?
It's one of those films. God, it just gets better as well as you get older. It gets New York in the late 70s.
Well, I think the first time you watch it, you think, oh, the music's great, and the updanceful's great. And the second time you watch it, or third, the older you get, you go, oh my God, it's gritty. This film is tough.
I know it's dark, and just the start of that film is a cold, grey day with the red flashes the neon. So you go, all right, that's the night, and it's got the U train, I think, the E train, the elevated train, called it. Just going into Brooklyn, and then the music starts, and New York looks concrete and grey and dark,
it's corrupt and broken.
Yeah, broken. But this guy is going still. I think we mentioned early on, I live for the weekends. As long as I got my weekend, I'm all right, And that was a film, and the film was based, I believe, on Nick Cohn's article about the mods of Shepherd's Bush in the early 60s, wasn't it?
That's right.
Which was the basis then for Quadrophenia, which was obviously the story of the Who, Shepherd's Bush band, and all the rest of it. And I was lucky enough to interview Phil Daniels the other day, and bless him. I mean, he did laugh. I said to him, I must be the millionth person to say, you changed my life for that film. And he went, it's about 3 million now. It's like a whole generation of men come up and go, you changed my life, because I remember watching it on VHS. And it couldn't have been that long after it came out, but he did say to me it wasn't a particularly big hit at the cinema. It was on VHS that it did really, really well. And I still think that as a snapshot of what it's like to be 18 or 19, even now, they got it pretty much bang on. Again, you live for the weekend, your kicks, your clothes, the drugs, the motorways. And again, that captures London in the late 70s. I know it's meant to be set in the 60s, but that seems to capture London in the late 70s perfectly.
It does. I mean, it's an extraordinary, and the cast is amazing in it, and the clobber, and I suppose it's an attitude as well. Amazing to think that Frank Rodham, who directed it, now is sitting there fat on the MasterChef because he invented MasterChef.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I think the performance as well. It's very interesting to me because sometimes we quite rightly, get obsessed with America when it comes to cinema, and why not? What they did in the 20th century was extraordinary, and the kind of the whole method and what happened and what grew out in America, and then what came with Pacino and De Niro. But they did that in Quadrophenia. I mean, they gave them scooters. Those London actors, he said, were all sort of come out the workshops of where you live now, and were
That's right, and a share school and all of that. Yeah.
That's right. So we're obsessed with being real. So we were kind of doing a similar thing in, I don't know, Scum was made and that. And those actors, like I said, like Ray Winston, have gone on to have incredible, stellar careers. And there's a reason for that. It was because they were exceptional, So I think it was kind of like almost a British version of that. And just coming back to Saturday Night Fever, Travolta's performance in that is stunning. It's an incredible performance. I mean, he's amazing in it. Not just the dancing and everything else, but you believe that he's a guy that works in a paint shop in Brooklyn.
Absolutely. And that's one of those things we were talking about, the Hollywood moguls and the Malcolm Gladwell thing we were talking about. Amazing to think about that little generation there. That yes, Quadrophenia, but you think about the Tim Roths and your Gary Oldmans and your Ray Winstons that came out of that similar time, that similar sort of dearth of British film that suddenly was exploding when you had you suddenly had a bit of realism on the telly and you had your Made in Britain. So there is a sort of growth there. I suppose David Thewlis is in that a bit as well. So that generation suddenly come up together.
All become worldwide stars, on the back of that. And I watched Made in Britain again. So again, it's extraordinary performance. And I read recently, I don't know how true it is, but Tim Roth, he's never auditioned since. Everything he does, he says, that's what I do. I'm not going to be auditioned, which I love. And if it's true, I hope it's true. It's a great thing for actors to hear because everybody has to audition. Even now, like you get up, like Vicky said, they ask to audition me. But I love the fact Tim Roth, straight from that, went, well, you know what I can do. Either you cast me or you don't. Bless him.
Rather brilliant, isn't it? And I think Tin Star is about to come back onto the telly in Liverpool, the new series. Is there a film, Johnny, that you fell in love to or fell in love with?
You mean as in fell in love with, as in like...
Yeah, interpret the question as you will, because I can't be bothered to particularly precise it, but it's like, you go, they fell in love to it or with someone because of it?
Well, obviously, I did the film Svengali, which I was in, and I fell in love with Vicky while filming it. And
is that where you met?
Yeah, on set. So that's probably. But we did watch Stand by Me together, and I love that film. I think stunning film, and it's one of her favourite films, and that's a film that kind of cemented the love, really. Stand by Me, and we watch it, funny enough, every Christmas together. We always watch it because it's one of those films you can watch over and over, and again, it just captures mid-50s America perfectly. You're there. You straight away, as soon as it starts, you go, well, I'm in mid-50s America with these kids here. Everything about it is so perfectly done. Beautiful.
I think it's one of the great films about childhood, one of the great films about memory. It's got boom, boom, boom. The great soundtrack.
The way it's shot, the wide shots of America, as we see America, them walking on the train track, they sneak out for a night of what you want to do when you're a kid with your mates. Everything about it is like you go, it's an exercise, and you go, oh yeah, I remember that.
And I think it was one of the first films that I got the framing device for. I don't know how old it was when I saw it in the cinema, but when you've forgotten that it's Richard Dreyfuss who's narrating it in a way. And sort of, at the end, it comes back and he's sort of, the summer was never the same since. And you're like, oh my God, it's a storytelling film. You can do that. And I'd forgotten. I think that was the first time I'd really realised that you can frame a movie that way.
It was beautifully done. It was, and what's interesting is I remember that reading as well. It was a Stephen King short novella. And I read it after that as well. And the novella is even darker than the film.
It's called The Body, isn't it? I think.
The Body is called. And there's moments that in the woods and they can hear a woman screaming, and you read it going. But they did capture something more than the book, even, which is very rare with a film. And they capture the essence of childhood, as you said. Just the name calling and finding ways of saying more disgusting things about your mother and all those. Oh,
and the worship of the charismatic, handsome boy, because the skinny kid is telling the story, and he's obviously completely enthralled to the charisma of River Phoenix, who's just extraordinary in it.
Amazing, and really interesting things as well when you watch it back more and more. John Cusack plays his older brother, who famously, he dies in a car crash in it. And I forgot about the bit where, when I watched it as a kid, the mother or the father turned to him and said, "It should have been you. You know, this is how he felt." And my mother gasped. You know, what a thing to say to a child. Do you know what I mean? Well, I forgot about those moments in the film, you know, where he's having to cope with his brother who's died and his mother and father who were, you know, obviously emotionally shell-shocked because of it. And he has to find love somewhere, and he finds it with his friends, and he finds it with the River Phoenix character. You know, it's a great film, and that's the film that we kind of we fell in love with. I fell in love too, I suppose.
Brilliant. That is a fabulous story and a fantastic place to leave it, because I'm gonna have to leave you there, and I'm sure you want to get Vicky back from her Belfast bubble of filming, so you can actually cuddle up on the sofa and watch something nice in this little lockdown time.
Yes.
Will she watch The Three Kings? Has she seen your film yet?
She has. She's been brilliant. She kind of she watches everything I do right the way through. It gives me notes, and she's great because they're football films, football docs. I'm always very careful of going, you know, is this something that will keep you entertained and all the rest of it? And she's brilliant, and she tells me when it's getting boring and I'm being too football-y.
Yeah, well, I think you did. I think you steered away from it brilliant. Honestly, I loved the film. It was brilliant talking about that with you. Brilliant talking about what you're watching as well, and what you've seen good lately. You're a brilliant guest, Jonny Owen. Thank you so much indeed. Really lovely to see you. Send our love to Vicky, and we'll have to get her on the show if she's not goggle boxed out by then. A bit later in the year. Good luck.
It,
so where's the film? The film's out. You're in cinemas. The 1st of November.
Yeah.
You're there.
Sunday it's out. I mean, it's amazing that it's got out. I kind of like resigned really myself. I was fine with it. Maybe, you know, I believe it's on Amazon. It's going to come on Amazon and DVD, but I was a bit like, I don't know what's going to happen with cinemas. But they've managed to get it into a fair few screens, which is brilliant. And it's already sold out in Scotland, the early showings, which is amazing, really. So, you know, if it's out for a week or two, I'm very happy with that. And, you know, and if people want to go and see it on the big screen, they can.
Brilliant. Well, it's definitely worth doing it, and it has got that big screen sensibility to it. So, Jonny, thank you very much indeed. Lovely to see you.
Thanks, Jason. Cheers.
Jonny Owen there. The film The Three Kings is out now to see in the cinemas, so go. You may have noticed that I've only trailed one guest this week. That's because we've only got one guest, but not only one. I just thought Jonny was so good and spoke so eloquently about the films that made him that we should give him his full breadth to explore here on Seen Anything Good Lately. And that's going to be the pattern from now on. I know you regulars may be disappointed, but I think we get deeper into the films and the TV shows and the viewing history of our guests that way. So we'll give them a bit of room. If they've got the time, then so have we, no? So I hope that's okay. I'd love to know what you think, though. You can go into the reviews sections on Apple, for example. Your feedback really helps me make the best show possible for us, because we are all in this together in some way in this podcasting world. It helps to know what you think. It helps others know where we are and how to find us, so we can all dig into the passion we've got for sharing and watching and telling everyone how enthusiastic we are about what we're watching, and telling them that they must watch it too so they can be on the same vibe. That's the whole point of Seen Anything Good Lately. So let me know whose recommendations you've taken up that you've heard on the show, and if you like the show, on those reviews and ratings. I really love hearing from you, honestly. Like this from Pie Guy, who I must admit I quite like the sound of him or her. I presume it's him. So Pie Guy, he says, it's a smorgasbord of recommendations, all wrapped up in banter and insight. My favourite new discovery. Oh, that's made my week, Pie Guy. Thank you very much. That's what we're after. So because of that, we'll keep the banter and the insights going from Pie Guy. Thank you very much. What is your favourite pie? I'm thinking steak and ale. That's why I get the feeling for you. Quite like chicken and mushroom myself. Anyway, just time to let you know if I've seen anything else good lately. I always look forward to a new film by François Ozon. He did Swimming Pool and 8 Women and Potiche and In the House. He's prolific, to be honest with you. And now comes Summer of 85. Été 85 in French. It's in cinemas and on Curzon Home Cinema right now. It's a summer seaside coming-of-age gay love story set in 1985. If you ever saw François' short film, Robe d'été, Summer Dress, you know how good he is at capturing the giddy heat of first love. And the opening half of this film is reassuringly great at it again. There's The Cure and Bananarama on the soundtrack, days at the beach, sailing in little boats, motorbike rides, and hot afternoons in the bedroom, with doses of humour, but there's always an undercurrent of dark threat, like you get in many of Ozon's films, and like you get, I suppose, in the treacherous Atlantic waters. The two boys are played by Benjamin Voisin and Félix Lefebvre. They're terrific. There's an English au pair who pops up between them, Philippine Velge, and it was also good to see Ozon players like Valérie Bruni-Tedeschi and Melville Poupeau, who are playing adult roles. She's the sort of caring yet heartbroken mother, and he's a rather creepy, sweaty, balding literature teacher. There's passion, and it turns into a rage of troubles. And you know this from the start, as the film does unravel a little bit. I suppose the beginning's not quite where I thought it was heading. It veers to the rocks a little bit, but in moments it's just great. And you remember how happy you are to immerse yourself for however long it is in the film world of François Ozon. For a family treat, there's Wolf Walkers from the Irish animation whizzes at Cartoon Saloon that have given us The Secret of the Kells and Song of the Sea. This again taps into Irish folklore like those films, with a story of the English occupation of Ireland and an evil Lord Protector, voiced by Simon McBurney. Evil functionaries in films are always voiced or played by Simon McBurney. He wants to tame the Irish and quash their rebellions and tame the countryside by ridding it of the woods and the forests and the wolves who live in it and terrorise the sheep and prevent the land being cultivated. But in the woods lurk the spirits of the wolf walkers who command these beasts. They're sort of humans by day and wolves by night. And one of them is called Maeve. She's a little wild girl, and she befriends a young English girl called Robin, whose father is a hunter, voiced by Sean Bean, who's been hired to trap the wolves.
Wolf, wolf, hunt them far and yonder.
The forest is brimming with wolves. It's my job to hunt them down, not yours.
But we could hunt them together. Wolves, bears, dragons even.
There's all sorts of magic and very exciting adventure that ensues in Wolf Walkers, all in that very graphic style of Celtic legend. It's got perfect storytelling pace. It's excellent stuff. My youngest son, Sevi, he's 9. At the end of it, he got up and said, "Can we clap?" And he did, and he clapped the film and said it was absolutely brilliant. And he's totally right. Sevi always is. So that's Wolf Walkers, definitely to be found as a family treat in cinemas if you can, and it will be on Apple TV, I think, next month. Talking of which, if you'd like to celebrate Halloween as a family, I've a little trick-or-treat gift for you. It's a collection of thrilling adventures, it's called, comprising the very funny Megamind, which stars Will Ferrell and Jonah Hill as voices. There's the excellent Peabody and Sherman, which my kids really liked. I liked it too, it's very funny. And the superb Aardman comedy, The Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, all which features, I think, one of Ray Fiennes' greatest ever performances. And he doesn't mind me telling him that. I have told him, and he agrees. He's terrific in The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. So, to win this DVD collection of thrilling adventures, courtesy of Universal Pictures Home Entertainment, just tell me, who did the original voice of Wallace in the Wallace and Gromit films? Answers to me at Sagl, S-A-G-L, at jasonsolomons.com, and you can win this top collection of Halloween films. So that's the show for this week. Thanks to Jonny Owen for a wonderful Seen Anything Good Lately selection, and for his new film, The Three Kings, and particularly for reminding us all to watch Stand By Me.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by